Welcome. In some denominations, you'd make a trip to the pastor's study for answers to the really tough questions. Well, let's see what we can do here. Merry meet, blessed be. Depending on how you got here, I'm Aidan Odinson, High Priest of the Temple of Gaia, or Bishop Cal Lippitt of the Universal Episcopal Church. And welcome to another session in a very different pastor's study. You may know that we lost our blip connection, and so all feeds are going by way of YouTube, whether it's to onenet.org or to the WordPress site, or, of course, you can always see it directly on YouTube. Not sure what the rationale was. The folks at Blip just suddenly said that I no longer was allowed to upload, claiming that what I had was unacceptable content. Now, why a priest talking about what a priest talks about is unacceptable content? Well, they say that sermons they consider unacceptable. Well, then, of course, there was the other show, Church Back Home, which, yes, it did include a homily, but the main thing was not that, but the fact that, well, the big thing was the sacrament. Yeah. And why they don't like sacraments, I don't know. I imagine they're trying very hard to get rid of religion as a category altogether. And so, we'll move on. If necessary, I'll just host everything on OneNet. I'm getting close enough to being able to do that. So, anyway, let's see what we can do here, huh? Yeah. Along with that, something else has come across my mind lately, and that is how some people, well, you would think that common sense had become an art form. Why? Because some people can't seem to get common sense. It's been going on around for a while. I remember a few years ago when I was living back out in Oregon, there was a cups ritual, Covenant of Unitarian Universalists Pagans. Great group. And well, when the ritual started, one of the first things that happens, of course, is to light the candles. And the priestess charged with doing that did so with a Bic lighter. And there were some people who were just, oh, why is she doing that with a Bic lighter? Now, I realize that there are some who would light a candle elsewhere and bring it in and light the other candles from that candle. There are others who would use matches. Well, this particular priestess had a lighter that she set aside for that and that only for lighting ritual candles. And it lasted her several years, many years. And why not? Besides, matches have sulfur. And if you light a candle anywhere else, you've created the same flame the same way. So I'm not sure what the big deal was. And then, of course, going back to Sabbath school class number 1, which was, what was that? January of 2010. It's a while ago. And when I talked about the price of a ritual tool, how much should it cost? Well, you know what? You know what I've noticed? The price of a ritual tool has nothing to do with the value of a ritual tool. If you're talking about the value of a ritual tool being the value that you get out of it, I have a very powerful water chalice. And it cost me 50 cents at a Salvation Army store in 1993. So I've had it for 20 years. It has served me faithfully. I have a blessing bowl that I've had for almost as long, that I bought in another thrift shop. What the heck? So, yes, I know there are people who will try to sell you a chalice that you could almost swap even for a fairly good car. Likewise an athame, or just about anything else that you would want to put on your altar, or wear, or whatever. The price tag does not determine its power or its effectiveness. Another one, reading a particular book. I'm not talking about a situation such as if you have a teacher and your teacher says to read this book, then I strongly suggest read this book because it's part of what the teacher is trying to teach you. Same way you don't sign up for a college course or even a high school course or any other course and just decide to read which books you want and forget about the ones that you're not interested in. So what if the professor wants you to read a book that's by an author that you never heard of? You're probably going to find it'll do you a lot of good to read that book if you're going to survive that course, right? Okay. I wanted to go into detail on that because I'm not talking about that. But I'm talking about where somebody seems to think that you've got to have your membership validated by having read such and such a book. I remember some years ago when I was following another path. There was a particular book written by a particular individual, and in essence, if you hadn't read that, people would be asking you why. It almost reminds me of back in college, my sophomore year. Very interesting encountering sophomores, or being a sophomore. After all, they'd survived being freshmen. So every once in a while you'll find a sophomore who is the font of all knowledge. And I remember a roommate who said that I really needed to take the course in economics. Take the course in economics? Gee, over the years I've gotten to know a few economists who would love to find out what is the course in economics so that they wouldn't have to take any others. Because the subject still bewilders them. I don't tell you to take the course in theology because the subject is still bewildering me. As much depth and breadth as I've explored, I've only explored one small part of it, one small corner. No. And so, 3 examples of common sense. And we're not talking about just daily conduct, but in our exploration, which is what we're doing when we try to get to know the divine. And trying to figure out just what exactly is going on, what it is that we're seeing. I'll give you an example. My dogs and cats have a lot of respect for the altar. And I've seen them just sit there and look up at it. Except for somebody who's fairly new, I can't think of a disturbance. No, they respect the altar. And they especially respect when I'm at the altar doing something, like a ritual or prayers. They understand. And so I'm just going to go on the presumption that if I didn't have to tell them, they probably understand more than I do about some things. And I'm going to cherish that. Some other common sense things. Since when would you create something to punish it? So why is it that in so many paths, especially Christian ones that I've noticed, there's so much emphasis on punishment? Or at least the prospect of it. Why? Why would somebody create something for the sake of punishing it? No. Now that doesn't mean I'm going to get away with a bunch of stuff. It certainly doesn't mean that I can wait until I'm old. Oops, hold it. By some standards I am. I can't wait till the last minute, thinking that I know when the last minute is going to be, and then suddenly, oh, I got to be good now. No. Common sense. What a precious commodity. Maybe we should pass it around. I'm Aidan. Blessed be. This has been a presentation of the Wise Ones Net. Merry part and blessed be.